First contact and conflict. The vast emptiness of space shattered as the Zarkan invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace. Their sleek, obsidian ships cast long shadows across Earth's moon, dwarfing humanity's orbital defenses. On the bridge of the flagship, Supreme Commander Vextor clicked his mandibles in anticipation. His compound eyes reflected the blue marble of Earth. Pitiful, he chittered to his subordinates. These humans have barely left their cradle. This will be over before our first molt. As the Zarkan ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, humanity's response was chaotic and disorganized. Nations scrambled their air forces, only to watch helplessly as their most advanced jets were swatted from the sky like insects. Ground-based weapons fared no better against the aliens' energy shields. In New York, Captain Sarah Chen of the U.S. Army stood amid the chaos of an emergency command center. Screens flickered with increasingly dire reports from around the globe. London was burning. Tokyo had gone dark. The Chinese missile defense grid had been neutralized in minutes. "This can't be happening," muttered a shell-shocked colonel beside her. Sarah's jaw clenched as she watched grainy footage of towering alien walkers striding through the smoldering ruins of Los Angeles. "Sir," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her gut, "we need to initiate Protocol Omega." The colonel's head snapped towards her, eyes wide. That's just a contingency, a last resort. We can't." "Look around you." Sarah gestured at the screens. "This is the last resort. If we don't act now, there won't be anything left to save." After a moment of hesitation, the colonel nodded grimly and reached for a secure phone. Thousands of miles away, deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, Dr. Elias Reeves felt the subtle vibration of his comm implant. He'd been dreading this call for years. With a heavy sigh, he pressed his palm against a hidden scanner, revealing a reinforced blast door. "It's time," he said to the small team of scientists and soldiers gathered in the secret facility. "Initiate the Exodus Protocol." Across the globe, in locations ranging from the heart of the Amazon to the depths of the Mariana Trench, similar scenes played out. Hidden bunkers and undersea habitats that had been preparing for this day for decades sprang into action. As the surface world burned, humanity's best and brightest began their escape to the stars. In low Earth orbit, the Zarkan fleet was taken by surprise as dozens of stealth ships suddenly decloaked and made a desperate break for deep space. Vextor roared in fury, ordering his gunners to destroy the fleeing vessels. But the human ships were surprisingly agile, many of them slipping past the alien blockade. "Pursue them," Vextor commanded. "No human escapes." But even as the chase began, the Supreme Commander felt a niggle of doubt. These ships were far more advanced than anything else they'd encountered on Earth. Where had they come from, and where were they going? As Sarah's transport accelerated away from her doomed homeworld, she allowed herself a moment of grief. Tears floated in the Zerog environment as she thought of her family, her friends, all those left behind. But there was no time for extended mourning. She had a job to do. "Status report," she barked, pushing down her emotions. "We've cleared the Sol system, Captain," replied the pilot. "No pursuit detected. Setting course for Proxima Centauri." Sarah nodded. "And the other ships?" A young lieutenant at the comm station spoke up. "We're receiving encoded transmissions. Looks like most of the Exodus fleet made it out. They're en route to their designated colony sites." "Good," Sarah said, allowing herself a small measure of relief. "Let's hope the Zarkan don't find them." For 3 years, the remnants of humanity worked tirelessly to establish their hidden colonies. Sarah found herself on Novaterra, a world circling Proxima Centauri. Its red sun and alien landscapes were a constant reminder of all they'd lost, but the planet was rich in resources and far enough from Earth to provide some security. Under the guidance of Dr. Reeves and other brilliant minds saved by the Exodus, human technology advanced by leaps and bounds. Necessity bred innovation, and the ever-present fear of discovery drove them to push the boundaries of science and engineering. Sarah threw herself into her work, helping to train a new generation of soldiers and coordinating with the other colonies. Nova Terra's military was small but elite, armed with plasma rifles and powered armor that would have seemed like science fiction just a few years ago. One day, as she oversaw a training exercise in the planet's rocky badlands, Sarah received an urgent summons from the colony's command center. She rushed back, her mind racing with possibilities. Had they been discovered? Instead, she found Dr. Reeves waiting for her, his weathered face grave. "We've received a transmission," he said without preamble. "From Earth." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Earth? But how? Reeves held up a hand. "It's a resistance movement. They've managed to stay hidden, fighting a guerrilla war against the Zarkan occupation. But they're running out of time and resources. They're begging for our help." Sarah stared at the holographic display, showing the transmission details. After a long moment, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "We're not ready. Our forces are still too small, our tech advantage not big enough." "Perhaps," Reeves agreed. "But can we afford to wait? Every day we delay, more of humanity dies on Earth. And sooner or later, the Zarkan will find us out here. Maybe it's time we took the fight to them." Sarah closed her eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. When she opened them again, there was steel in her gaze. "Patch me through to the other colony leaders. If we're going to do this, we do it together." Over the next few weeks, a daring plan took shape. A small task force would be assembled from the best ships and soldiers each colony could spare. Their mission? To slip back into the Sol system, make contact with the Resistance, and assess the situation on Earth. If possible, they would begin hit-and-run attacks on Zarkan positions, gathering intelligence and testing the aliens' defenses. As the day of departure neared, Sarah found herself in the hangar bay, staring up at the sleek lines of the HSS Defiant. The stealth cruiser represented the pinnacle of human engineering, a far cry from the clumsy rockets they'd used to flee Earth. "Quite a ship, isn't she?" came a familiar voice. Sarah turned to see Dr. Reeves approaching, leaning heavily on his cane. "She's beautiful," Sarah agreed. "I just hope she's enough." Reeves placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's not about the ship, Sarah. It's about the people inside it. You've trained them well. They're ready." Sarah nodded, trying to draw strength from the old scientist's confidence. "And what if we fail? What if we lead the Zarkan straight back here?" "Then we'll face that challenge too," Reeves said firmly. "But we have to try. We owe it to those we left behind." As the launch countdown began, Sarah took her place on the Defiance bridge. Her hand hovered over the command console, doubt warring with determination in her mind. With a deep breath, she made her choice. "All stations, report in," she ordered, her voice steady. One by one, her crew confirmed their readiness. As the hangar doors yawned open, revealing the star-studded blackness of space, Sarah felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. Helm, set course for Sol. Engage stealth systems. The deck hummed beneath her feet as the Defiant's engines came to life. Whatever happens, she addressed her crew. Remember this: Earth is not lost. Humanity is not beaten. Today, we take our first steps towards reclaiming our home. As the Defiant accelerated into the void, leaving the safety of Nova Terra behind, Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. The Zarkan thought they'd broken humanity's spirit. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The war to retake Earth was about to begin. Building the Resistance, the HSS Defiant slipped silently through the inky void of space, its advanced stealth systems rendering it virtually invisible to both sensors and the naked eye. On the bridge, Captain Sarah Chen studied the tactical display with intense focus. They were approaching the outer edge of the Sol system, and tension aboard the ship was palpable. Passive scans are picking up heavy Zarkan activity around Jupiter and Saturn, reported Lieutenant Kaido Nakamura, the ship's sensor officer. Looks like they've set up mining operations in the asteroid belt too. Sarah nodded grimly. Makes sense. They're stripping our system for resources. She turned to her XO, Commander Marcus Reeves, son of Dr. Elias Reeves. Any sign they've detected us? Marcus shook his head. Negative, Captain. Stealth systems are holding steady. We're ghosts. As they crept closer to Earth, the true extent of the Zarkan occupation became clear. The once blue planet was scared and darkened, its atmosphere choked with pollutants from alien industry. Massive structures stretched from the surface into low orbit, space elevators used to ferry resources off-world. My God, whispered Sarah, her heart aching at the sight of her ravaged homeworld. She allowed herself only a moment of grief before steeling her resolve. Comms, begin broadcasting on the encrypted frequency. Let's hope the Resistance is listening. For agonizing hours, they waited in high orbit, broadcasting their message on loop. Just as Sarah was beginning to fear their mission was in vain, a reply came through. Unknown vessel, this is Aurora. We've been waiting a long time for you. The voice was distorted and filled with static, but it was unmistakably human. Sarah felt a surge of hope as she responded. Aurora, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the HSS Defiant. We're here to help. What's your situation? Captain, it's worse than you can imagine, came the reply. But there's still hope. We're transmitting coordinates for a secure landing zone. Please hurry. We don't know how long we can keep this channel open. Following the provided coordinates, the Defiant descended through Earth's atmosphere under cover of darkness. They touched down in what had once been the Brazilian rainforest, now a blasted wasteland of charred stumps and ash. As Sarah led a small team out of the ship, figures emerged from the shadows. They were a ragtag group, clothed in mismatched armor and wielding a variety of weapons, some human, some clearly salvaged from Zarkan technology. A tall woman with dark skin and intricate facial scars stepped forward. Captain Chen, I'm Commander Elena Rossi. Welcome to what's left of Earth. Over the next few days, Sarah and her team were given a crash course in the realities of life under Zarkan rule. The aliens had divided the planet into sectors, each overseen by a regional governor. Humans were used as slave labor in mines and factories, with only the barest resources allocated for their survival. But the Resistance, calling themselves Aurora, had been busy. Hidden bunkers and tunnels honeycombed the planet, providing refuge for those who escaped and staging areas for hit-and-run attacks on Zarkan targets. We've managed to salvage and reverse engineer some of their tech, Elena explained as she showed Sarah their main workshop. Half-finished weapons and devices littered the benches. But we're always short on materials and power sources. That's where you come in. Sarah nodded, taking it all in. We've brought supplies and advanced tech from the colonies, but more importantly, we've brought hope. You're not alone anymore. As the Defiance crew integrated with Aurora, sharing knowledge and resources, a plan began to take shape. They would start with small, strategic strikes, disrupting supply lines, sabotaging key facilities, and gathering intelligence on Zarkan operations. But their most audacious goal was to capture a Zarkan communications hub. If they could tap into the aliens' network, they'd gain invaluable insight into enemy movements and potentially even contact other human resistance cells around the globe. Preparations for the raid were intense. Sarah worked closely with Elena and her team, combining Aurora's knowledge of Zarkan patterns with the advanced tactics and technology from the colonies. The night before the operation, Sarah found Elena alone on a makeshift observation deck, staring up at the stars barely visible through the polluted sky. Credit for your thoughts, Sarah asked, moving to stand beside her. Elena was quiet for a long moment before speaking. I was born after the invasion. I've never known a world without the Zarkan. Sometimes I wonder, what if we fail? What if this is all there is? Sarah placed a hand on Elena's shoulder. That's why we're here. To show you, to show everyone, that there's more out there. Humanity isn't finished. We're just getting started. The raid on the communications hub was a testament to human ingenuity and courage. Using a combination of stealth tech, From the defiant and guerrilla tactics perfected by Aurora, they managed to infiltrate the facility with minimal casualties. Sarah led the strike team herself, her colonial-made plasma rifle cutting through Zarkan defenses like a hot knife through butter. Helena moved with the grace of a predator, years of surviving on occupied Earth evident in every calculated move. As they fought their way to the central control room, Sarah couldn't help but be impressed by the seamless integration of their forces. Colonial technology blended with Earthborn determination, creating a fighting force that took the Zarkan completely by surprise. With the hub secured, tech specialists from both groups worked feverishly to hack into the alien systems. What they discovered sent a shockwave through the resistance. "Captain, Commander, you need to see this," called out Lieutenant Nakamura, his fingers flying over the alien interface. On the main screen, a galactic map flickered to life. Dozens of worlds were highlighted, each accompanied by Zarkan text. "It's a list of their conquered planets." Elena breathed, her eyes wide. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. And potential targets. Earth isn't their endgame. It's just the beginning. As they delved deeper into the Zarkan files, they uncovered something even more startling. The aliens were preparing for a massive push into unexplored space, a trajectory that would take them dangerously close to the hidden human colonies. "We need to warn Novaterra and the others," Sarah said urgently. "But we can't risk a direct transmission. It might give away their position." Elena's face set in grim determination. "Then we'll have to strike hard enough that they can't ignore us. Force the Zarkan to redirect their forces back to Earth." The implications were clear and daunting. They would need to escalate their attacks, taking on bigger targets and accepting greater risks. But as Sarah looked around at the faces of her colonial crew and the Earth resistance fighters, she saw no hesitation, only resolve. "All right," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "Let's show these aliens what happens when you back humanity into a corner. We're taking back our planet, and we're going to make damn sure they never threaten another world again." As they began to plan their next move, Sarah felt a fierce pride in her fellow humans. Against all odds, they had survived, adapted, and now stood ready to fight back. The Zarkan had thought Earth was conquered, its people broken. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The resistance was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming their world and safeguarding the future of humanity among the stars. And Sarah Chen, along with every human on Earth and in the colonies, was ready to give everything to see that future realized. Turning the tide. The next few months saw a dramatic escalation in the war against the Zarkan. With the intelligence gleaned from the captured communications hub, Aurora and the colonial forces launched a series of coordinated strikes across the globe. Each operation was carefully planned to maximize damage to the alien infrastructure while minimizing human casualties. Sarah Chen found herself in the thick of the action, leading raids on Zarkan supply depots and command centers. The advanced weaponry and tactics brought from the colonies proved devastatingly effective against the complacent occupiers. For the first time in years, the aliens found themselves on the defensive. One particularly daring mission targeted a massive Zarkan factory complex in what had once been the Australian outback. The facility was responsible for producing the fearsome battle walkers that had crushed Earth's initial resistance. As Sarah's team approached under cover of a violent dust storm, she couldn't help but marvel at the scale of the alien structure. It stretched for miles, a labyrinth of metal and energy fields that pulsed with an eerie blue light. "Remember," she said over the comm to her strike force, "our primary objective is to plant the fusion charges at key structural points. Everything else is secondary." Elena's voice crackled back, tinged with grim humor. "You colonials and your precision strikes. Sometimes a little chaos is just what you need." Their banter was cut short as they breached the perimeter. Alarms blared, and Zarkan security drones swarmed towards them. Sarah's plasma rifle spat blue fire, cutting down the first wave, while Elena and her Earthborn guerrillas used their intimate knowledge of Zarkan tactics to outmaneuver the defenders. As they fought their way deeper into the complex, Sarah was struck by how seamlessly the two groups had integrated. Colonial tech and training blended with the raw determination and adaptability of the Earth resistance. Together, they were a force that the Zarkand had never anticipated. They'd reached the central power core, a massive pulsing orb of energy that powered the entire facility. As Sarah's tech specialist worked to plant the charges, a new threat emerged. A towering Zarkand battle commander, encased in gleaming black armor, stepped out of the shadows. So, the alien's voice reverberated through the chamber, a mix of clicks and guttural sounds. The vermin have learned new tricks. Sarah raised her rifle, but the commander moved with shocking speed. With a sweep of its armored limb, it sent her flying across the room. Elena opened fire, her salvaged Zarkand energy pistol leaving scorch marks on the alien's armor, but failing to penetrate. As Sarah struggled to her feet, she saw the battle commander advancing on Elena. In that moment, all her training, all the advanced tech at her disposal, seemed inadequate. But then she remembered Dr. Reeves' words, "It's not about the ship. It's about the people inside it." With a primal yell, Sarah charged the alien. She ducked under its swinging arm and drove her fist, encased in her powered armor's gauntlet, into a joint in the Zarkand's carapace. The alien roared in pain and surprise. Elena seized the opportunity, diving in with a vibroblade she kept concealed. Together, human and colonial-born, they brought down the mighty Zarkand warrior in a flurry of strikes. As the alien fell, Sarah's tech specialist called out, "Charges set. We need to move." They sprinted from the facility, the complex exploding behind them in a spectacular series of detonations. As they watched from a safe distance, the massive factory that had produced so many instruments of Earth's oppression crumbled into ruin. The destruction of the Walker factory was a turning point. Across the planet, resistance cells intensified their attacks, emboldened by the victory. The Zarkand, for the first time since their invasion, found themselves truly challenged. But the aliens didn't take this setback lightly. Supreme Commander Vextor, furious at the humans' resurgence, called for reinforcements from nearby conquered systems. The Zarkand war machine was vast, and Earth was still just one planet among many in their empire. As reports came in of increased Zarkand fleet activity in the outer solar system, Sarah knew they were running out of time. They needed a way to strike at the heart of the alien occupation, to deliver a blow so significant that it would force the Zarkand to reconsider their entire campaign. The answer came from an unexpected source. During a raid on a minor Zarkand research outpost, Elena's team discovered information about a secret project the aliens have been working on since the early days of the occupation. "They call it the Nexus," Elena explained, projecting a hologram of a massive space station in high Earth orbit. "From what we can gather, it's a sort of central command and control center for their entire operation in this sector of space." Sarah studied the projection, her mind racing with possibilities. "If we could take it out, we'd cripple their ability to coordinate their forces across the planet and the solar system," Elena finished. The plan they formulated was audacious to the point of insanity. Using the HS Defiant and a small fleet of captured and modified Zarkand shuttles, they would launch an assault on the Nexus itself. It would require every scrap of technology, every ounce of courage, and every bit of the luck that had kept humanity alive this far. As they made their final preparations, Sarah took a moment to address the combined human forces. Resistance fighters stood shoulder to shoulder with colonial troops, their faces a mix of determination and fear. "I won't lie to you," Sarah began, her voice carrying across the makeshift hangar. "This mission is dangerous. Some of us won't be coming back. But what we do today will echo across the stars. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for the future of our species, for every human world out there among the stars." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. The Zarkand thought they had broken us. They thought humanity would kneel, that we'd accept slavery and extinction. But they underestimated us. They forgot that we are descendants of those who survived ice ages and predators, who crossed oceans and reached for the stars. We are humanity, and today we take back our future. A roar went up from the assembled troops, a sound of defiance and hope that seemed to shake the very ground. As Sarah made her way to the Defiance launch bay, she felt a fierce pride in her fellow humans. Whatever happened next, she knew that humanity's spirit would never be extinguished. The assault on the Nexus loomed before them, a battle that would determine the fate of Earth and perhaps all of humanity. As the Defiance engines roared to life, Sarah Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Zarkan were about to learn a painful lesson. Never underestimate the tenacity of the human spirit. The Great Counteroffensive. The ascent through Earth's atmosphere was tense, with every crew member of the HSS Defiant acutely aware of the magnitude of their mission. As they broke through the cloud cover, the enormity of the Zarkan Nexus came into view. The space station was a behemoth, easily dwarfing anything humanity had ever constructed in orbit. "All ships, report in," Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. One by one, the captains of the modified Zarkan shuttles confirmed their readiness. Each vessel was packed with a mix of colonial troops and Earth resistance fighters, all prepared to give everything for this mission. As they approached the Nexus, alarms blared across the Defiance bridge. Multiple enemy signatures detected. Lieutenant Nakamura reported, "They've spotted us." Sarah's jaw clenched. "Activate countermeasures. All ships, commence attack pattern Delta." The space around the Nexus erupted into chaos. Zarkan defensive platforms opened fire, filling the void with searing energy beams. The human fleet scattered, executing evasive maneuvers that would have been impossible just months ago. The Defiant shuddered as it took a glancing hit. "Shields at 80%, Marcus called out. "Returning fire." Sarah watched as the Defiant's advanced weaponry tore through several Zarkan fighters. But for every enemy ship they destroyed, more seemed to pour out of the Nexus. "We need to get boarding teams onto that station," Sarah growled. "Helm, bring us in close. Prepare for hot drop." The Defiant dove towards the Nexus, weaving through the firestorm of energy weapons and debris. As they neared one of the station's docking bays, Sarah gave the order. "Now." Assault pods launched from the Defiant's belly, each carrying a team of elite soldiers. Sarah held her breath as she watched the pods streak towards the Nexus, knowing that Alina was leading one of those teams. The pods smashed through the energy barriers of the docking bay, disgorging their human cargo into the heart of the enemy stronghold. Sarah allowed herself a moment of relief before refocusing on the space battle. "Captain," Marcus called out, his voice tense, "we've got a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up a massive energy spike from the far side of the moon. It looks like..." "Oh no." The main view screen shifted, showing a colossal Zarkan dreadnought emerging from behind Earth's satellite. It was easily 10 times the size of the Defiant, bristling with weapons. "Attention human vermin," a familiar voice boomed across all frequencies. "This is Supreme Commander Vextor. Your pathetic rebellion ends now." Sarah's mind raced. They hadn't anticipated this level of firepower. The dreadnought could easily turn the tide of the battle. "New plan," she announced. "All ships, focus fire on that dreadnought. We need to keep it occupied while our boarding teams complete their mission." The human fleet regrouped, unleashing everything they had against Vextor's flagship. The Defiant led the charge, its advanced weaponry leaving scorch marks on the dreadnought's hull. But the Zarkan vessel was simply too powerful. One by one, human ships winked out of existence, overwhelmed by its massive energy weapons. Inside the Nexus, Alina and her team fought their way through corridors swarming with Zarkan defenders. The alien architecture was disorienting, with gravity shifting unpredictably and holographic barriers appearing out of nowhere. "We need to reach the central core," Alina shouted over the din of battle. "According to the intel, that's where we can overload the station's systems." They pushed forward, colonial plasma rifles, and scavenged Zarkan weapons creating a symphony of destruction. Alina's heart pounded as they neared their objective, knowing that every second counted. Back in space, the situation was growing dire. The Defiant shuddered under another brutal assault from the dreadnought. "Shields critical," Marcus reported. "We can't take another hit like that." Sarah gripped her command chair, her knuckles white. They were so close, but Vextor's unexpected arrival had changed everything. She was about to order a retreat when a new voice crackled over the comms. "This is Aurora Actual. We're in position at the core. Commencing override sequence now." A surge of hope rushed through Sarah. Alina had made it. Now they just needed to buy her team a little more time. "All remaining ships," Sarah commanded, "concentrate fire on the dreadnought's forward sensors. Let's give them a blind spot." The battered human fleet rallied, pouring everything they had into a coordinated strike. The Defiant swooped in close, its weapons leaving deep gouges in the dreadnought's sensor array. Vextor's voice boomed again, this time tinged with rage. "You think this will save you? I will crush your pathetic species beneath my—" His transmission cut off abruptly as the Nexus suddenly blazed with light. Massive explosions rippled across its surface, tearing the station apart from within. "They did it," Sarah breathed. "All ships, clear the blast radius." The human fleet retreated as the Nexus tore itself apart in a spectacular series of detonations. The shockwave caught Vextor's dreadnought, sending it spinning out of control. As the debris settled, Sarah scanned anxiously for signs of the assault pods. "Elena, come in, Elena." For a heart-stopping moment, there was only static. Then, "This is Aurora Actual. Mission accomplished. Requesting immediate evac." Cheers erupted across the Defiance bridge. They had done it. Against all odds, they had struck a crippling blow to the Zarkan occupation. As rescue operations began, Sarah allowed herself a moment to absorb the magnitude of their victory. The destruction of the Nexus would throw the entire Zarkan command structure into chaos. For the first time since the invasion, humanity had seized the initiative. But as she watched Vextor's damaged dreadnought limp away, Sarah knew this was far from over. The Zarkan would regroup, would seek revenge. And somewhere out there, the hidden human colonies were still at risk. The battle for Earth had been won, but the war for humanity's future was just beginning. As the Defiant set course for home, Sarah Chen steeled herself for the challenges ahead. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for certain: humanity would face it together, united as never before. Final confrontation and resolution. In the months following the destruction of the Nexus, Earth underwent a dramatic transformation. The Zarkan occupation, once seemingly unassailable, began to crumble. Without their central command structure, the alien forces found themselves increasingly isolated and vulnerable to the growing human resistance. Sarah Chen, now promoted to admiral, stood in the war room of the newly established United Earth Defense Force headquarters. Holographic displays showed the steady progress of liberation efforts across the globe. But her attention was fixed on a different map, one showing the vast expanse of space beyond their solar system. "The Zarkan are regrouping," she explained to the assembled military and civilian leaders. "Our long-range scouts have detected massive fleet movements in nearby systems. They're preparing for a counterattack." Elena Rossi, her face bearing new scars from the Nexus mission, leaned forward. "How long do we have?" "Weeks, maybe a month," Sarah replied grimly. "They'll throw everything they have at us. This is no longer about holding Earth. It's about the survival of our species." The room erupted into heated discussion. Some argued for strengthening Earth's defenses, others for launching a preemptive strike. Sarah listened to all sides, her mind racing with possibilities. Finally, she raised her hand for silence. "We can't just react to their moves," she said firmly. "It's time we take the fight to them. I propose Operation Starburst." The plan was audacious. Using the advanced propulsion technology reverse-engineered from captured Zarkan ships, they would launch a series of lightning raids on key enemy worlds. The goal wasn't conquest, but disruption, to throw the alien war machine into chaos and buy time for Earth's defenses to be completed. As preparations for Operation Starburst reached fever pitch, an unexpected message arrived from deep space. It was from Nova Terra, the hidden human colony Sarah had left behind so long ago. Dr. Elias Reeves' weathered face appeared on the main screen. "We've been monitoring the situation," he said, his voice filled with pride and concern. "Earth's victory has inspired all the colonies. We're mobilizing everything we have. The fleet is on its way." Sarah felt a lump in her throat. The colonies were risking everything by revealing themselves. But with their advanced technology and fresh troops, it could tip the balance decisively in humanity's favor. As the days ticked by, tension mounted. The combined fleets of Earth and the colonies gathered in high orbit, a vast armada of human ingenuity and determination. Sarah stood on the bridge of the flagship, a new vessel named Phoenix, symbolizing humanity's rebirth from the ashes of near destruction. Then, on the eve of their planned offensive, the sensors lit up. The Zarkan had arrived, their fleet darkening the sky with countless ships. At their head was a monstrous vessel that dwarfed even Vextor's dreadnought, the personal flagship of the Zarkan Emperor himself. "All ships, battle stations," Sarah commanded, her voice steady. "This is the moment we've been preparing for. Today, we fight not just for Earth, but for the future of all humanity." The space around Earth erupted into the largest battle in human history. Advanced human ships darted between lumbering Zarkan cruisers, their weapons tearing through alien shields. Colonial energy weapons lit up the void, while Earthborn pilots pulled off maneuvers that left their enemies in disarray. But the Zarkan Emperor's flagship was a terror to behold. It shrugged off attacks that would have vaporized lesser ships, its weapons capable of destroying human vessels with a single shot. As the battle raged, Sarah realized that a conventional victory was impossible. They needed to end this decisively, or Earth would be lost. With grim determination, she outlined a desperate plan to Elena and her top commanders. "It's a one-way trip," Elena said softly, understanding immediately. Sarah nodded. "Probably. But if we succeed, we end this war today." The Phoenix disengaged from the main battle, gathering a small strike force of the most agile ships. They shot towards the Emperor's flagship, weaving through waves of enemy fire. "All ships, execute attack pattern Omega," Sarah ordered. "Breach their hull at these coordinates. We're going in." The strike force punched through the flagship's outer defenses, crash-landing in a massive hangar bay. Sarah led the charge, her powered armor allowing her to tear through Zarkan defenders like tissue paper. Elena was at her side, Earthborn cunning complementing colonial technology. They fought their way through twisting corridors, every step bringing them closer to the heart of the ship. Finally, they reached the central chamber, where the Zarkan Emperor awaited. The alien ruler was massive, dwarfing even the largest of his warriors. His exoskeleton gleamed with embedded technology, and his eyes blazed with cold fury. "So," the Emperor's voice reverberated through the chamber, "the mammals have learned to bare their teeth." "We've done more than that," Sarah replied, her weapon trained on the alien monarch. "We've learned to win." What followed was a battle that would be etched into human legend for generations to come. Sarah and Elena, backed by their strike team, against the Emperor and his elite guard. Colonial weapons clashed with Zarkan biotech, the fate of two species hanging in the balance. In the end, it came down to a single moment. The Emperor, wounded but still terrifying, loomed over Sarah. Elena lay unconscious nearby, the rest of the team fighting desperately to hold off reinforcements. Sarah's armor was in tatters, her weapons spent. But as the Emperor prepared to deliver the final blow, she remembered everything that had brought her to this point. The fall of Earth, the years of resistance, the sacrifices of countless humans who dreamed of freedom. With a primal yell, Sarah Chen lunged forward. She drove her fist, armored in the last functioning piece of her exoskeleton, directly into the Emperor's central nerve cluster. a weak point identified in years of studying Zarkan physiology. The alien ruler's eyes widened in shock and pain. He stumbled backward, ichor pouring from the wound. With a final, rattling breath, the Emperor of the Zarkan fell. The effect on the battle was immediate. Deprived of their leader's psychic control, the Zarkan fleet fell into disarray. Some ships fled, others fought on aimlessly, but the coordinated assault was shattered. As Sarah helped a groggy Elena to her feet, she opened a channel to the human fleet. "This is Admiral Chen. The Emperor is dead. Push forward and end this." The news spread like wildfire through the human forces. With renewed vigor, they pressed their advantage. Within hours, the greatest invasion fleet the Zarkan had ever assembled was reduced to scattered remnants. In the days that followed, humanity began the monumental task of rebuilding. The Zarkan Empire, deprived of its leader and its aura of invincibility, sued for peace. Earth was free, and for the first time, humans took their place as a major power among the stars. Sarah stood on a balcony overlooking the rebuilt skyline of New York, Elena at her side. The scars of war were still visible, but everywhere there were signs of renewal and growth. "So," Elena said with a small smile, "what's next for the hero of humanity?" Sarah chuckled, shaking her head. "There's still so much to do. Rebuilding Earth, integrating the colonies, establishing our place in the galactic community. But for now," she trailed off, gazing at the stars twinkling in the evening sky. "For now," she continued softly, "I think we've earned a moment to appreciate how far we've come, and to remember those who didn't make it this far." As the two women stood in comfortable silence, a shooting star blazed across the heavens. To Sarah, it seemed like a promise, a sign that humanity's future among the stars was only just beginning. The war was over, but humanity's greatest adventure was just getting started.